Today we're looking at adding and subtracting numbers, and when we do that we need to have a really clear sense in our head of the value of each digit within those numbers. So in a number such as this, you need to know straight away that this is not a number 7, it's 700. And this is not a number 6, but it's 60, or 6 tens. And if we say it as 768, it gives us a sense of the value of each of those digits. But something that can also help us is a table like this, which you might remember from primary school. You've got your hundreds, your tens, and your units, and then your decimal points and your tenths and your 100ths. And we can write in a number, any number like this, into this table and really get a deeper sense of the value of each of those digits. So what did we say? We've got 7 hundredths here, haven't we? So the 7 is going to go in this column. We've got 7 hundredths. And then we've got 6 tens, so that goes in here, and then 8 ones, or 8 units. That gives us 768. And then we have an invisible decimal point with zeros in the other columns. Now we don't normally write those in because 768 is a whole number, but you need to know, and it will help you to know, that every whole number has an invisible decimal point afterwards, and then zeros that go on forever and ever. So if we take another whole number like 48, let's think about how to write that into our table. Well, we've got 4 tens, that's going to go in here, and 8 ones, or 8 units, and then again we would have an invisible decimal point. We wouldn't normally write it in, but it's there, and all these zeros afterwards. And what this is teaching us is the value of each digit in those numbers, and it also helps us to line up the numbers into the right columns, because if we want to add the numbers together or subtract them, that's going to be key to getting the right answer. So if we do that over here, I can now use my table to write in the 48 in the right columns underneath the 768, so I can add them together, say. So the 4 is going to go underneath the 6 because they're not a 4 and a 6, they are a 40 and a 60. They're in the tens column, okay? So the 40 is going to go underneath the 60 of the 768, and the 8s are going to go together because they're both units. And then now I've done that, I've got all of my hundreds lined up, my 700 here and no hundreds here. I've got my 60 and my 40 lined up, and my 2 8s lined up as well. So now let's add them together, see where we get. We've got 8 plus 8 is 16, so that's 6 down, carry 1. 6 plus 4 plus 1 is 11, that's 1 down, carry 1. And then 7 plus this little one here, don't forget him, is 8, so that's 816. So we can write that in our table, that's 800, 110 and 6 units. And you're ahead of me here, there's an invisible decimal point afterwards with zeros in the other columns. Okay, now if we take some numbers that are more obviously decimals, let's take 7.68 and add that to 4.8. We need to write those numbers into columns to be able to get the right answer. So let's use our table to help us. We've got 7.68. Where's this 7 going to go? This time this is not a 700, is it? It is a 7 because it's right next to the decimal point. So we know it's a unit, or it goes in the ones column. So 7 goes here in the 1 column. We have the decimal point and the 6 tenths and 8 100ths afterwards. And then 4.8, likewise, we've got 4 units, and then the decimal point and 8 tenths, and then I'm going to put a 0 in here to help us in the 100ths column, okay? And as you can see, this is how we're lining up these two numbers to add them together. So the 7 and the 4 go together in a column. I'm going to just rub that out and write it in columns. So the 7 and the 4 go together. The decimal points stay in a nice straight line as well. The 8 goes underneath the 6, and then we have a 0 underneath the 8 there. Now we've done that, we can add them together and see where we get. 8 plus 0 is 8. 6 plus 8 is 14, that's 4 down, carry 1. And then 7 plus 4 plus 1 is 12. And the decimal point comes all the way down in a straight line to sit in the middle to give us our answer of 12.48. So again, we'll write that in our tables. That's 1 lot of 10, 2 units, decimal point, and then 4/10, 8/100. Finally, let's look at a subtraction. Let's look at 76.8 minus 0.48. Now, if I were to subtract those two numbers like that, I would get the wrong answer because at the moment the numbers are not lined up in the right columns. But let's see how we should be doing it by using our table. Okay, so 76.8 is 7 tens, it's going to go here, 6 units, and then decimal point, and the 8 in the tenths, and a 0 here. And then we've got 0.48. Now that's a very small number, it's less than 1, so we have no units, okay? So we have a 0 in this column next to the decimal point, and then after the decimal point we have a 4 and an 8. So you can see how these two numbers need to be lined up in columns differently to give us the right answer. So let's copy that down. We have 76.8, and then underneath that we have 0.48. So the 0 is in the units column, so it's straight the way underneath the 6. The decimal point stays in a straight line, and then we have 4 and an 8. And now if we subtract them, we're going to get the right answer. 0 minus 8 we can't do, can we? So we need to borrow 1 from here. That gives us 10 minus 8, which is 2. We have 7 minus 4, which is 3. 6 minus 0 is 6, of course. And 7 minus 0 is 7. And again, the decimal point comes all the way down the middle to give us our answer of 76. That's 7 tens, 6 units, 0.32. Now, what you'll notice, the key to this is making sure your decimal point is lined up. In all of these numbers in this table, the decimal point is in one column, okay? And if you look at these sums we've done here, you can see it's the same thing. The decimal point is always in its own column like that. And the reason I knew straight away that I'd got these digits in the wrong columns is because the decimal point wasn't lined up. So that was going to give us the wrong answer, okay? Even here with whole numbers, it might look as though we're not working with decimals, but remember, actually we've got this invisible decimal point and a 0 after every whole number. And once again, the decimal points are all in a column. So if you can be really clear with yourself about where the decimal point is, even if you're working with whole numbers, all of your other digits will automatically fall into the right columns, and that will give you a much better chance of getting the right answer.